Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sustainable Work. I have an amazing speaker with me today. Her name is Janelle King. Janelle is an IO consultant and certified executive and leadership coach. It is her mission to help organizations, teams, professionals, and people reimagine and redesign the way they do life and work through the power of purpose and the science and practice of industrial organizational psychology. The power of it. She currently lives out this mission through her IO consulting practice, Excel Leadership, where she helps organizations create people-centric, purpose-driven organizational cultures that allows organizations, teams, and employees to engage and excel in meaningful work using data and insights from industrial, organizational, vocational, and positive psychology. Welcome, Janelle. So good to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you currently do?
Yeah, so like you shared, I am an industrial organizational consultant. I have a IO consulting practice called Excel Leadership, where we really help organizations create people-centric, purpose-driven cultures for their members, teams, and employees to really engage and excel in meaningful work. And just to give a background how I got into the IO world, it really started back out when I had graduated from Howard University, and I had went on my own purpose journey, really just kind of, being in a place where I knew it was made for more, but really couldn't identify what that more was. And just thinking about long-term, sustainability in the future, I knew I didn't want to be at a place where I was just living out other people's expectations for me, or just in the work that was in alignment with my divine purpose. And so that led me to go on a self-introspective journey where I started to fast and pray and ask, what is my purpose? How am I supposed to contribute in this world? And from that, I had a blog that I had started back at the time. It was more fashion and beauty focused. And although my background is in psychology, for my master's, I had decided to pursue consumer apparel retail studies. And I loved it. I was passionate about it, but again, couldn't see it being something that was sustainable for my future. And so I had picked that blog back up and started blogging again, and noticed that I was blogging more about like personal spiritual development. And from that, I remember I was sitting on the couch one day working on that, and I heard something say, Google the word life coach. And so I did, although I had no idea of what a life coach was, Maria, outside of Jan Van Zant from the Oprah Network. And so I was like, I don't think that is the focus that I want to have in my work, but, I'm like, hey, what do I have to lose? And so I Googled the word and saw that, life coach helps someone to evolve into the best version of themselves. And in that moment, I heard your purpose is to inspire and motivate people to pursue purpose-driven life, and life coaching will be your assignment. And this is how you're going to carry out this work in the world. And so that was confirmed probably about 2 weeks later, where this girl that I had went to church with years ago had reached out to me and said, do you offer coaching? And I hadn't shared that with anybody at the time, that, I was moving into this work. So that was just kind of like a confirmation that I heard correctly. But what I found within doing that work, a lot of the women who were coming to me for coaching, they came to me because they weren't finding it at work. They were getting burnt out. They weren't feeling like they were being fulfilled through their jobs. And so I noticed that there was a disconnect. And I was like, we're doing all this amazing work, uncovering purpose, figuring out how to translate that into meaningful work, only for them to go back to their companies where the culture wasn't set up in a way that was conducive to their thriving and their sustainability, right? And so I said, okay, what can I do? Just being this, I'm an Enneagram 1. So we're very purpose-driven, very, you see it? Look, I knew there was connection there. So we're very purpose-driven, as you know. And so I'm like, okay, like I can't just, let this be a thing where, we're doing this work and there's not a continuation of it because there's not an environment for them to thrive and grow. And so that kind of led me to go back into the drawing board. And I knew that at the time there was another pivot and transition coming for my own career, and didn't know what that looked like, and went back into that self-reflective mode, and realized that back before I had even committed to Howard University, I remember touring a college back in my hometown. And I remember they had an IO psychology program. But because I had it in my mind, I was going to Howard University. I said, well, Howard doesn't have that program. So, oh well. But it was so interesting to see how things kind of came full circle in that moment. And I discovered IO psychology, and it's all about really the science, psychological science behind improving the workplace. And I realized that so much of the work that I was doing with women overlapped with what could be done with organizations. And I said, okay, well, I don't think I can just stop at women and just people. Like, I really want to create organizations where they can thrive in purpose and meaningful work too. And for people to feel connected. I mean, it says in the research, 87% of people worldwide hate their jobs. 67% are actively disengaged. And so there's no way to be in a career at that point where you feel like you can sustain that, when you're so burnt out, when you're disengaged and not really connected to purpose. And so from that, it became my mission, not just to help women or people, but really create organizations where they can thrive in purpose and meaningful work too.
That's so beautiful. It sounds like you've been on such a journey. Yes, and it's evolving
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. So, what it makes me wonder, throughout your journey, what were the biggest obstacles that you faced, and what helped you get through them?
Yeah, that's good. I think that, when we finally have a understanding of what our purpose is, and we have a sense of a higher calling, we're so energized by it. And even within that, you may see yourself, your gifts are starting to present themselves and to be elevated. You're passionate about, obviously, the work that you're doing. But I think that because we kind of go into rose-colored glasses, that we don't always understand that it's a journey. Like you were saying, and a journey has its peaks and its valleys within that, and understanding how to navigate that and not lose sight of purpose when there are obstacles, when there are trials and tribulations that can present themselves along the way. I know that was something for me that I had to really work on, because I'm like, okay, here's the purpose, here's the mission, let's go. And not really expecting there to be too many obstacles, because I felt like I was being obedient in a sense to that higher call. And so I had to learn how to have realistic expectations along the way, so I could avoid unnecessary disappointment and have a realistic expectation about what it would look like. I always say that a part of what you're going through, it's like your purpose to teach a lot of the things that you've gone through, but in the moment, sometimes we don't see it, because whether that's disappointment, discouragement that can really, rage at our soul. So we can feel like we're out of alignment with our purpose. And so it's learning how to be resilient within that, and be able to be innovative and adapt along the way, so you can have a sustainable journey that will lead you to where you want to be.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're very connected to yourself, like you know yourself well. Have you always been this way?
I would say that I've always had a good sense of what I wanted.
Yes.
Very headstrong. Once I have something in my mind, I know that I'm going to get there. It's just a matter of figuring out the journey. I feel like I'm equal parts visionary and equal parts like administrative, and So it's always easy for me to see the vision and to execute. But then, like I said, just having the wherewithal to be like, okay, like even when those, tests and trials come, keep moving forward. But I believe we should always be growing and always be learning more just about ourselves, but also so much of purpose is also understanding that it's an aspect of service to it as well. I don't believe that you can have a sustainable purpose without it being connected to something larger than you. And so I feel like having that sense of awareness of myself in light of how I can develop myself to serve has been something that's always been important to me.
Thank you. So I think I'm getting a glimpse of it, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do you define sustainable work?
Yeah, for sure. Sustainable work, it has to be connected. Like I said, it all goes back to purpose for me and having a reason or a why that keeps you going and moving forward. I think when we think about sustainability in terms of work, I think traditionally it's been really focused on productivity, processes, profit. And, with that focus, it could be easy to get ourselves in a place where we're so committed to the goals that we forget about the people that are behind them. And so being able to hone in on a purpose will give you a foundation that will keep you going. It gives you, again, a reason to keep going that's greater than your own. I would say your passions are for yourself, a purpose is for others. And so if you're thinking about how you can serve and you can create a sense of shared purpose between not just the organizational purpose, but thinking about how can we create a shared sense of meaning between ourselves, the teams, and the organization. It's a place where you can start to create processes and policies and procedures that can help to carry out that work. And then again, lead to sustainability in the future because you have a common vision that you're working toward and you're providing an environment where people feel like they can contribute. They know how their strengths are being utilized, so they're not getting burnt out because they're doing work that doesn't feel soul fulfilling to them, or they're, hacking away at these goals, but not understanding how they contribute to the progress of them. I think that's important for sustainability for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So given what you just said, one thing that you said that sometimes organizations think only about the profits and leave the people behind, versus in sustainable organization, you put people forward, right? You think about people first. What results in your experience working with people and organizations, and also perhaps if you want to talk about research in IO psychology, you can talk about that too. What results organizations can obtain when they have sustainable work environment versus not? So people-centric versus profit-centric.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the research shows that organizations that are having or creating organizations that is centered around that sustainable purpose, they are outperforming their competitors by a 6-to-1 average. And I think that when you do focus on profit, it's easy to get lost in like the goals. It's easy to get caught up in those things and not understanding how, by focusing on people, is how you create an atmosphere where you can excel in meaningful work. That's not to say that you are disconnecting from the goals. Obviously, profit is important, but connecting to the organizational purpose as well and the existence. There is no productivity. There's no success without really understanding how, okay, here's our purpose. How can we align all of our resources, including our employees, to support that purpose and to feel like they can contribute to that, but as well, making sure that we're focusing on what matters. So from a people standpoint, from a customer standpoint, and a profit standpoint. When you're considering these stakeholders at every aspect of the journey within the organization, as well as the employee experience journey, it really is about creating that environment for total effectiveness, which leads to excellence, which leads to the profit. And so again, it goes back to starting inwardly and then looking externally and seeing how it really is at every point of the journey that you can create ways where you can thrive in that work.
That's great. So, the other thing that comes to mind for me, that it's almost like redefining the purpose of organization itself from the perspective of the leadership, right? Because you may think it's the profits, but is that really true? Perhaps there's something else behind it, which, if there's a founder of the company, or the CEO or the board, whomever is in charge, like, what is your purpose really?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that for many organizations, they just think the statement is enough, but not understanding how that statement should be, again, the thing that grounds and connects to everything, the people, the processes, the solutions. How is everything centered around this? Because essentially work was designed for human flourishing, right? And so with that, when we create these environments where we feel like we can contribute, we can show up, it's not just for the profit, but for the sustainability of global sustainability as well. How is the local government, how is this contributing to what we're doing? How is this showing up how could it show up in an international perspective? Really, it's centered around the well-being of people, right? That's what the heart of business is. It's solving a problem with our solutions for the well-being and flourishing of society, right? And so really honing in on what that purpose is, you can be more effective in how you show up within the organization, but also how you show up to your customers and clients as well, and any other stakeholders that have a touch point within the organization.
Yeah, I love that you're saying, and you talk about purpose, and that for me resonates with why, right? Why are we here? And it reminds me of Simon Sinek, and that people buy not what you do, by why, but why you do it. So yes, so thank you for bringing in the customer, because I think it's important, absolutely, from all these different perspectives. So it sounds like it's a win-win for all, right? If you create people-centric, purpose-driven processes in the organization and really connect it all together, it benefits everyone. So why aren't all organizations doing it? In your experience, what have been the biggest hindrances? What are the blind spots?
Yeah, I think that it is that, traditional HR focuses on a lot of different policies that are behind protecting the organization, but not really understanding the people part aspect of it. I think a lot of organizations are still on the old performance-based systems that are tied to rewards, like those extrinsic rewards, like money or compensation or benefits, bonuses, or even sometimes just having a cushy office, right? Where there's a lot of ways for, working out and things like that, having these different systems within the actual organization, but not really understanding at the heart. People want meaning. People want to feel connected. People want to feel safe, seen, heard, and significant. But a lot of the traditional performance management-based systems is focused on, just those extrinsic motivating factors, and also old ways of doing performance management systems. And I say, pun intended, that the old way of working isn't working anymore. And I believe that organizations don't have to, they can't just be aware, but they have to be willing to understand what they don't know and being able to ask their employees, not even just, okay, I'm going to design this experience for them, But a part of that looks like partnership, understanding the employees, talking with them, getting their feedback, and not just asking the feedback, not even just acknowledging the feedback, but taking action on that as well. What's good of doing these assessments? What's good of doing these performance management systems and having this feedback system if we're not going to go back and take that information and implement it? And that also creates trust amongst the employees, amongst the organization members, when they can understand that they are safe to share their feedback, and they know that the organization is going to also be held accountable and actually implement it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it, and it's what sounds like to me that, okay, we have this old way of working that we know doesn't work. We know it from
Right.
the experience of successful organizations. We know it from research. We know it doesn't work. And we have a new way of working, which is connected to purpose and meaning, right? And people employee-centric experiences in organizations that lead to more benefits for everyone. So ultimately, what holds our organization back is holding on to this old mindset, right? That this is,
Yeah.
I mean, this worked to a certain degree for us over some period of time. And also taking into consideration that we humans are genuinely resistant to change, right? By the nature of
Yeah.
the brain. So it's really taking a conscious, intentive action and being like, okay, let me take a leap of faith and try this and see how it
Yeah,
works.
absolutely. And I think that organizations have to remember it's not like they're doing it alone. And a part of creating that people-centric environment is creating that aspect or environment of vulnerability and humility, and accepting that you don't know what you don't know, but that doesn't mean that you can't make changes, and being able to partner with people who are more familiar, who may have a deeper understanding, create a partnership so you can then again deploy things that are going to work. I think there's a difference between utility and usefulness, and it actually being conducive for thriving, for excellence in work, right? And so understanding, okay, where are our gaps? What are ways that we might have been doing work that again, like aren't working? How can we actually meet our employees where they are, and understand what they need? And honestly, as a leader and an executive, think about what you need too, apart from serving the stakeholders, right? You have those needs too. And again, it's all about creating that win-win environment. It's not like we have to be on the employee end of the, perspective, or just the organizational. It's again creating that shared partnership together and understanding that we're all here for this. We're all here and we're all invested. And how can we even be even more invested, be more excited, and not just saying, oh, I have to go to work, but I get to do this work. I get to show up and have this impact and create this sustainable work environment for myself, but also that's going to, in return, be able to really serve our community and our customers and clients as well.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. And it's almost like also redefining what the role of a leader is, right? That it's not, I'm the leader or the manager. My job is not having all the answers and being right. My job is asking others, right? Asking for feedback, asking for what do you need? How can I make your experience here better? And I think it's connected to what you said earlier about service, right? The servant leadership. I'm here in service of you, whether I'm, a frontline manager, I'm the CEO, it's all about service to others.
Yeah, absolutely, at every level, and understanding how you can lead and grow at every level. A part of being a leader is being able to learn to be coachable, not just leaving the leadership development for, emerging leaders or, other employees, or leaving the training and development to them. No, leaders have to be trained and developed as well. Executives need to be trained and developed as well, especially doing the work where it is every type of work or every type of role, every type of industry is people centric. I don't care what kind of work that you do. I don't care if it's retail, tech, whatever. At the end of the day, the end user is a person, right? And so understanding the holistic needs of a person, and then understanding, okay, how can I evolve into the best version of myself so I can serve, so I can be the place where I'm equipped, I'm passionate to do the work, even if, sometimes I lose sight of that, right? Staying connected to that purpose and understanding what that is for yourself and the organization, you can go ahead and move forward, create the sustainable future, which to me, sustainability is longevity and legacy, right? And I think that's important at an individual and organizational level. We're trying to be in this for the long run, yes, but we're also trying to have impact and influence it and leave a legacy along the way. And I believe how you show up to lead can determine what kind of legacy then you will in return leave, right? And so if you want to be known as an organization that is committed to their people, to prioritize them, and to cater to their holistic needs and make that impact on their lives and the customer, or you can be known for that toxic workplace environment or an aloof one where you're not connected and you're disengaged with and disconnected to what's going on within the organization too, because you're so focused on the profit or you're so focused on the process and productivity that you forgot who was at the center of it, which is people and purpose.
Yes, thank you. I love that you talked about legacy, right? It's not only about us here now, it's about the future people here. So thank you for speaking to that. So, what I wonder now is if you could speak a little bit about how do you work with your clients, whether it's in coaching individuals, we can start there, or organizations. What is the process that you take them through that helps them understand their purpose or learn what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the signature services that we offer is purpose discovery and activation at the organizational, team, and individual level. And that will look different. Each process or each part of that process looks different based on whether it is at the organizational, team, or individual level. But it all starts with discovery and then moving into clarification and then implementation or action. And so in that discovery process for the organizational level, it's like we're really going back to the basics and really identifying, okay, what is our identity? Like, who are we as an organization? So starting there to understand, okay, yes, we have a purpose, but a lot of that purpose is based in our identity. So we have to connect to that. And then understanding, okay, now we have our existence. We know who we are, what is the problem that we are here to serve. And sometimes that can get muddied as well, right? And so being just super clear about the problem helps you to understand how you can move forward with purpose and intention to create purpose-driven, people-centric solutions that will meet that need. And so once you have an idea what that solution is, it's like, okay, well, what is the impact that those solutions are going to have in the life of our customers or our clients? When we know that impact, we know how we can carry out a mission. I always say that purpose and mission is a little bit different. I would say that a mission is more so how you carry out that purpose. And so it's not just enough to have the mission statement. You have to understand, okay, what is the why that is driving that mission? And from that mission, we can cast vision of what it looks like, of how we want to create that long-term sustainable future. How do we imagine ourselves years from now? What is our ultimate goal? Or what's the ultimate vision that we're working towards? Because then we can rally our resources. We can rally our people behind this shared purpose, this mission that we can come together to carry out for this vision, right? I always say that vision A purpose is your foundation. Mission is how you carry that out, and vision gives you direction. And so you know what you're working toward. It's not like a GPS that provides like step-by-step instructions, but more so serves as like a compass, right? And so you know that by heading in a right direction, you're going to get to your destination, even despite the problems, the challenges, the obstacles that you may encounter along the way. You know that by going in that direction, you will get to your destination. And so at the center of that, that's holding everything together, is that common purpose. And so being able to root yourself and ground yourself in that, you can say, okay, now we have our purpose. What does that look like in terms of our procedures? What does that look like in terms of our policies? How do our values support this purpose? Do our stakeholders, do our employees, do they agree with that? And that's where a lot of the clarification comes with that. And that's why this is also a co-collaborative process too. It's not just like the leadership is honing in on what this is. Research actually does show that organizations that focus on creating co-shared purpose and vision with their employees, that they do have more trust within the organization, because it's not just like a dictatorship, essentially, right? It's again creating an environment where everyone feels invested, where everyone feels like they can contribute and they can connect to the purpose. And to be honest, that also opens up doors for people to explore, is there a person organization fit here? Because if in that discovery process and that clarification process, and people understand, maybe I don't feel called to the customer that we're serving. Maybe I don't feel called to solve this problem. And that's okay, to be able to remove people out of the situation that don't serve the common purpose, right? You want to have everybody on board, and if not, at least understand how they can show up and serve, or create some type of sense of meaning for themselves to keep them there and committed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you. So it sounds like what you're doing, right? You're defining this a little bit broad and concepts, and then you guide your clients through, okay, so now that we have that, let's look at our processes. Do our processes support this? Do our policies support it? There are procedures that support it? Does our performance management system support that? Really?
Yes. Yes, and that's also important to having a way of measurement too, because I think purpose can seem very abstract in nature, right? But it's only abstract when it's not activated and being measured. And so that also looks like creating plans in place. Okay, how are we making sure, again, that we're creating accountability around this? How are we bringing our teams involved under this purpose and creating shared purpose within the teams, as well as individually, again, because it's hard to stay connected when you don't understand why you're working towards something. I believe the research says that 65% of employees don't understand the organization's purpose or what their organization does to make a difference. It's hard to stay engaged when you don't understand why you're there or what your company really does. And that's even companies that have the mission statement. So again, the mission statement is not enough if it's not seen and felt and heard within the organization, and it can be connected to.
Mm-hmm. So, what comes to mind, do you have trouble, or do some organizations have trouble identifying what their purpose is? If they, let's say they've been, I don't know, working for some amount of years, they haven't defined the purpose yet. Do they have trouble doing that?
Some do. And I think sometimes because we're so focused on the solutions that we're not really understanding, okay, why are we even here? And when we are focused on the profit versus how we're serving, again, at least in my definition of purpose, there is no purpose without service. Like, you have to exist to meet the need of something, right? And a part of that is service. And so if we're so focused on the processes the profit and the goals, it can be easy to disconnect from purpose. So yes, to answer your question, some organizations do struggle with elevating their profit or their processes over purpose and their people. And so that's why I like to focus on going back to what that process looks like. And I think when an organization is just starting, like startups, it's easy to get that shared sense of purpose, right? But for multi-generational companies, sometimes it can be hard because all those years have gone by. There could be toxic leadership that occurs within that, and then the organization continues to grow, which is a good thing. But it can also be they're growing at a sustainable rate because they're not connected to with what matters, which then can again affect profit in the long term if you are losing your employees at a high turnover rate, or even if you're not laser focused. I mean, even purpose really communicate or translates into marketing message too. And so it's not just, again, the people and the policies and things like that, but also shows up in branding as well. It all goes back to understanding purpose and the reason why your organization exists and how you could communicate that on all levels and all touch points in the business.
I wonder, could you provide an example of, let's say, a purpose and then how that purpose translates into mission and a process so we can see like the connection?
Yeah, sure. So for example, I had used the MBA's purpose, and forgive me, I can't remember it exactly to a T, but I believe a lot of it was showing up to impact through play. I know that was one of them. And playing, inspiring, inspiration, and getting other people to play along within the organization. Like I said, I'm butchering this right now, but I wanted to explain it in terms of organizational and team and individual purpose and how that can be carried out. So say that is the organization's purpose, right? And the teams are formed around this centered purpose of inspiring play and healthy competition. Actually, I think that's more so aligned with what it was, right? And so with the teams, if this is what the purpose is, how is the team being formed to sustain and maintain this purpose, right? And so with the team, there can be forgive me, the coaches that come in here, right? And they're picking their players that can support this team purpose, right? And so within the team members, they may join the NBA, or honestly, they might play the sport because it served a sense of purpose for them. So whether that be that they grew up in a difficult home environment and, the sport or basketball was an outlet for them, it serves a purpose for them. Or they see themselves wanting to be able to inspire other people and inspire other youth to take up a sport, to have that outlet, or to give back to the community. It's all inspiring play, and it's all having this healthy form of competition where we're really all just showing up to like inspire and entertain others, if that makes any sense. So it's like the organization has this purpose: inspire play, competition, and creating this environment. The team is sorry, for lack of better words, the team is formed around this common purpose, and then the employees or the organization members will support this purpose and find a sense of shared purpose within that, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of like a concentric. So I say it's organizational, team, and then individual at the center within that, but it all serves a greater purpose, which is, whatever the organization has for it and so forth.
Okay. So one other thing that I've seen that it's, speaking of the selection process, right, that's perhaps also when a coach or whoever chooses the player for the team, they also want to find a team member, right, that is relating to that purpose, and that would be a good fit for this team, so that all together they can fulfill the purpose.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so it's the same thing in organizations, right? We want to hire people, want to select people who are aligned with our purpose and will support our team in becoming the best they can be. So, and I don't know if NBA would be the best example for it, but you know what, is there any other processes that come to mind for you that you could explain, like translation of that purpose into? And you can use another example if you want, another purpose.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. Even with creating like your employee experience, from the time that you're attracting to hiring to socializing the employees as well. And I think this is a good opportunity, even in the interview process, to understand what the organization purpose is, and then understanding how we are finding people who can center around that purpose and really have that person organization fit, right? And so identifying the purpose allows you to ask questions like not just value-based questions. The values are a part of the identity of the organization, but again, going back to the existence and asking that potential candidate, do they feel called to that purpose as well, and in what way, right? And then even along that process, once they are brought into the organization, creating these socialization experiences and onboarding experiences that center around that purpose, not just, again, share what the statement is, but makes that purpose tangible along the way. And so maybe bringing in examples or testimonies or videos of the customers and clients and how you're showing up and impacting their lives. And the employee can see, okay, like I see this impact being made, I see the difference being made, and I'm excited to show up and serve in this way too, because I want to be a part of this impact that the organization is making, right? And so connecting that in the onboarding process, but then providing opportunities for training, learning, and development and growth along the way that also support that purpose. And so having the trainings that come in that will be specifically focused on different areas of what that purpose looks like is important, because a lot of employees do feel like there aren't enough opportunities for development and growth, or they're not relevant opportunities as well. And so again, having that purpose is able to ground you in the fact that you're able to be able to provide and galvanize the resources and the people that can actually sustain that purpose and ultimately carry out the mission and manifest that vision.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think just create such a beautiful holistic experience for all the employees, and kind of like grounding every process, right? Whether it's the way we run the meetings, right, into this purpose. And I think earlier you mentioned that you define the purpose, but then you also define the values that support the purpose. And so if we have
Right.
our values, if we have the purpose, we can look at each thing we do and be like, is this in service to this? Because I do notice sometimes, in organizations, there is, okay, yes, we do have the values, but then we have processes that are in opposition to these values. So they don't support them. So they create a very uncertain experience for the employees. Okay, we say that, but then we do that. And ultimately people know, like, something is wrong here. Like there's some kind of misalignment. So it's really making an intention and taking an action and looking at every process and be like, okay, does this serve this or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Just having those key indicators that will actually identify, okay, like you said, is this in alignment? Is this being communicated? Is this being tracked? Is this being measured? Is this being sustained? And if not, what are the opportunities here for us to create those alignment opportunities?
Yes, totally. Thank you. One last question is, do organizations ever change their purpose? like over a life course?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when there's like mergers or acquisitions in place, or there's like a reorg in a sense, purpose can be recreated. Um, and then at that point, it is important to, again, involve everyone in that process so they can feel like there is um, there is some security there too. Because if there isn't security, there isn't any credibility. And so it's important to understand that if there is an opportunity where purpose does need to be redefined, that clear communication is being involved on every level of that process and every aspect of that process to make sure that everyone is aware, people still feel safe, and they again can understand the part that they have to play in that process.
Mhm. Great. Thank you, Janelle. So before we conclude, I wanted to ask you, so if people wanted to find you and work with you or talk to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me personally on my website at janelleking.com. And if you're interested in how your organization can really engage and excel in meaningful work, you can go to excelleadership.co, or you can shoot me an email at info@excelleadership.co.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think for me, it has been such a fruitful, beautiful interview. I've learned a lot. I'm sure so will the audience. Thank you, Janelle.
No, thank you, Maria, for having me. It was a joy.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow at Sustainable Work.